Hello guys, this is Click Naija Online Channel and you are watching Unite Naija Season 3. And today we have something very important we need to discuss. The world we are living today, everything is moving at a very fast pace. And sometimes it feels like we are all chasing shadows. But what's really going on with Nigerian youths and the obsession with drugs and making sharp money?
Yes, that's true. It's like everyone is in this rat race to make it, the whole hustle thing, regardless of how they make it. And it has become a thing amongst Nigerian youths now. So there's a huge interplay between wanting to get rich quick, internet scam, and the abuse of drugs amongst Nigerian youths. And so many youths today believe that making money through scam, internet fraud, and all that is legitimate. So you see that, or you find younger youths looking up to older ones who have made it and admiring them as role models. And a great portion of the monies that are being made by young people who are into internet fraud and internet scam are used on very lavish lifestyle and also drug abuse. So it looks like these three things are interlinked or interwoven. So today we want to find out how all this connects with each other on the program Unite Naija.
This is Click Naija Online Channel, the radio set to redefine your radio experience and empower young minds, and also raise youthful voices on issues that concerns the youth. So I welcome you to Unite Naija Season 3, a program celebrating Nigeria's diversity, promoting unity, and inspiring positive change. My name is Folashade Akinola.
And my name is Ehi Ohiani. And on this edition of Unite Naija, we are talking about the nexus between the rise of drug abuse, cybercrime, and the quick fix syndrome amongst Nigerian youths. Today, the whole hustle culture has come to stay. As a matter of fact, there is what they call HQ now. I think that it means hustle kingdom, and I know that it's a place where younger ones are groomed to learn the hustle culture. So you have young guys who camp themselves in an apartment that they have rented, and they have other young people who they are mentoring. In some states in Nigeria, and thank God we have the NDLEA person here. In some states in Nigeria, they actually, parents actually take their children to some of those places. Yeah. And these are realities that are living with us today. So you see the interplay between drugs, crime, cybercrime, and young people, even go to school to learn how to scam others. And you start asking the question, what exactly is going on? Like drug abuse, cybercrime, and, the quick fix syndrome all feed into each other. Many youths today believe that to make money through scams is legitimate. If you talk to a young person, they don't see anything, like they're trying to understand what exactly are you saying is wrong with this, and they can defend it. You can engage them and have a conversation, and they'll give you their sides of the story. They see such persons as role models that they look up to, and a great portion of the monies that are made from the quick fix syndrome are used for drugs, elaborate lifestyle, and then the cycle continues. In our midst, we are privileged to have some very unique, strong voices amongst Nigerian youths. And first on our list, in no particular order, but somehow he happens to be first on our list, is Mr. Femi Babafemi. He is the Director, Media and Advocacy, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. It's nice to have you, Mr. Femi. On my list, I have Mr. David Opeyemi. He is the head of Trade Services, World Trade Center here in Abuja. Mr. David, nice to have you. We also have Zimchim. Yeah. Nice to have you, Zimchim. Zimchim is an organizational development and change management consultant. All right. We also have Aliyu Ilyas. Aliyu Ilyas is a political economist and a customer experience expert. Nice to have you, Mr. Aliyu. I have Dr. Harris Ifeanyi. Dr. Harris is a lecturer at the University of Base University. He is a lecturer at the Mass Communication Department. He's a communications consultant. Nice to have you. So we have Angel James. Yes, I'm particularly excited to have her because it's not easy to have a very young person who knows what they want to do and are focused at it and getting at it. She's a journalist and creative writer. She is a first-class graduate of media and communication from Nile University. Angel, you're welcome. So we also have Daniel Jafaru. Daniel Jafaru is an AI security and governance expert. Thank you so much for being here. And I think we also left one of the biggest for last on the list. He is Professor Sani Saka. Thank you for coming. He is the director at the Veterinary Hospital University of Abuja. But in spite of that, his background, he is someone who is very passionate about youth development and youth empowerment. So we can now do the honors of receiving them very, very, very warmly.
Big round of applause. Straight down to business. According to data from the Nigerian Communication Commission, NCC, over 25 million Nigerians have been affected by some form of cybercrime, with losses estimated at over 250 billion naira yearly. And another statistics from National Bureau of Statistics, we have about 14.4% of Nigerians, which amounts to around 14.3 million people between the ages of 15 and 64, who are struggling with drug use. So most people using drugs are between the ages of 25 and 39. That's
just in case 14.3 million doesn't look much to you. Remember that Equatorial Guinea, how many are they
like
in
1
their
million
country?
or so.
Like 2 million. They're a country of like 2 million. So imagine like how many of Equatorial Guinea now, Abi? Okay. No, it's a country in Africa.
It's a country in Africa, yes. So, very popular.
Imagine like 7 Equatorial Guinea, like everybody in Equatorial Guinea are high on drugs. Because we put that number in the big country like Nigeria. So we might feel, it's just 14 point something million. But if one of those people is in your house, you understand what drug addiction or drug
and
abuse.
This is like a chain,
Exactly.
Gets going and going like that.
Still from statistics or from research, we can see that cannabis, even though this cannabis of 18, I don't really know what is cannabis. Anyway, experts here. Igbo. Okay. Why do we use these fantastic words? Why we should call it
banana?
It's the most commonly used drug in Nigeria, or most commonly abused in Nigeria, followed by opioids, and then the non-medical use or non-prescription use of cough. Remember the sweet codeine some time back. So questions are arising, and we're going to start asking and dropping those questions right away. And I have my plate full of questions. I want to throw all of them out so we can all start thinking about them. What exactly is the real situation on ground? All of us, we all live in our various, enclaves. What is the real situation on ground? How bad is the issue of drugs amongst Nigerian youths? Do Nigerian youths think that this is a problem? Do Nigerian youths, it's easy to assume that, it's a big problem. The people who you say it is a problem to, do you think it's a problem? Why is drug use associated with cybercrime and then the quick fix syndrome? And what exactly is the connection? How did we get to this point where, youths who scam and live a flashy lifestyle become role models to others? How did we get to this point? Who has actually failed the youths? Has someone failed the youths? Where did we miss it? Or have the youths failed themselves? Yeah. I'm quickly going to take the microphone to our director from NDLEA. Because if we're talking about usage of drugs in Nigeria, I want you to give us the situation. You can tell us from official status, but those of us here will tell you what's in day. So let's hear from you. What exactly is the situation presently?
Thank you. First, I would like to appreciate Radio Nigeria for organizing this forum. And it's really something that would help not only the people here, but then millions of our young people out there when this goes out eventually. Now, coming to your question, what is the drug situation like in Nigeria? And I'll take you back to, you mentioned it, you referred to that. That is the first evidence-based survey that Nigeria relies on up to today, even though planning to have the next drug use survey in the coming months by the grace of God. We're working and talking with our international partners already. That was the survey report that was published in 2018, and that gave us a grim picture of what the drug situation in Nigeria is, with 14.3 million Nigerians aged 15 to 64. That represents 14.4% prevalence rate. And that is almost 3 times the global prevalence average of 5.6. That gives you a very grim picture that it's not too really good. Now, when you, like you said, 14.3 million may just look like figures. You did mention Equatorial Guinea of about 2 million people. But beyond even Equatorial Guinea in Africa, which became very popular recently for some other reasons, you also have a number of European countries that are even less than 14.3 million people. So that gives you a very graphic picture of what the situation is in Nigeria. But then the good thing is, after that 2018 report, there were a lot of actions taken by government to put things right, especially given the projection that by 2030, the situation globally will rise by about 10%. Whereas in Africa, the situation will grow worse by 30%. Meaning that,
who is giving this projection?
That's the UNODC. That's the World Drug Report. Yes, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. So we can't sit back and allow that projection to come to be. And so government had to put in place a lot of measures. The first was the setting up of a presidential advisory committee for the elimination of drug abuse called PASIDA, then in 2018. Coincidentally, that presidential body was headed by the current chairman chief executive of NDLEA, General Mohammed Buba Marwa. And so there was a blueprint developed, and fortunately on January In January 2021, General Mawa was appointed as the Chairman Chief Executive of NDLA. But then, let me cap it up this way. Now, that was, if you say, okay, those were statistics from survey, but then coming to operations of the agency, of the NDLA, I'll tell you that indeed, for real, okay, that report said predominantly those, majority of those who were covered or those who were abusing illicit substances were those that actually between ages 25 and 39. That's predominantly youths. And I'll tell you from our operations again that out of more than 52,000 offenders that have been arrested by the NDLA in the last 3 years, over 60% of them are youths.
You know, when these projections, to the ordinary person, they just come and sound like some dooms say. I don't know how to put it. This is not the first time that projections like this have been, done. And we stay until these projections actually come to pass, because projections are done within spaces of time, maybe a 10-year period, then they come again. Has the NDLEA ever, because right now there are measures to ensure we don't get to this projection, from track record from the past, has the NDLEA been able to ensure that these kinds of projections don't come to pass? Or each time they give the projection, we have activities and we have things, and then the projection still ends up...
No, absolutely. I'll tell you for real that indeed, that's why I said, following that projection, following that survey report, Nigerian government had to take a lot of proactive measures to ensure that these things don't get worse, or the projections by the World Drug Report don't actually come to pass. And then some of the things that have been done, one is to cut access and supply of these illicit substances, because when you see across the country, I'll tell you that in the last 3 years, we've had more than 8.6 million kilograms of assorted illicit drugs taken out of circulation. If you know what that, I'm not sure anywhere in the world you have that volume of drugs taken out of circulation. 8.6 million kilograms. That's like, if you just imagine, like over 300 trailers, 40-foot trailers loaded and put together. Just imagine what that means if that kind of volume were to be allowed on our streets.
It's a very interesting picture, because the people in the drug business are another, set of people that need to be talked about. But I want to assure you, sir, that even people on this panel have questions for you. That is for sure. So we'll come back to you. I want us to move around the table, and Zim, I'm going to come to you immediately. What is your own perception or assessment of this conversation that is going on presently? What do you think about where the Nigerian youth is in terms of this problem that we are discussing right now?
Thank you so much. I also want to thank Radio Nigeria, Click Naija, for hosting this program. It's really insightful. I think it's important for us to note, first of all, that drug abuse does not happen in a vacuum. There are factors that lead to the abuse of drugs. And it's actually very interesting to find out that the people who are abusing drugs the most are from the ages of 25 to 39. One would think maybe it's the young ones who are maybe below 20, below 22. We did I and a couple of people, some of them sitting in this room right now, did a project earlier this year with some secondary school youth. And one of the questions that we were asking in our pre-assessment questionnaire was sort of, how do they manage their emotions? What do you do when you're angry? What do you do when you fail? How do you manage those things? And it was very clear that a huge percentage of people did not know and hadn't been taught how to manage their emotions. I would like to pivot a bit and say, I don't think cannabis is the most abused drug. I think the most abused drug is alcohol. Let's agree, alcohol is a drug. And if you go out into Abuja on a Thursday night, on a Friday night, on a Saturday night, on a Sunday, actually from Thursday to Sunday, I stop driving like a mad person because I know that barely anybody on the road has their full senses with them. And a lot of it is because whether you're succeeding or you're failing, a lot of people are not taught how to manage their emotions. You don't know how to regulate yourself. So a lot of times when someone is done with a week of stressful work, they want to go to beer barn and they want to sit down and they want to pop a bottle or two, chill with some friends, right? Smoke some weed and whatnot. So you will find that the use of drugs happens both for people who are trying to dull their senses in terms of the economic challenges that they're experiencing, but also those who are also trying to let off some steam because, I just closed a deal. Let me go and pop some bottles with the boys. And I think it's important that we start looking at that in the sense that aside from addressing the lack of economic opportunities that lead some people to try to dull their senses with the use of drugs, it's also important that we start having those conversations about mental health and how to regulate our emotions, right? We need to start having those conversations. I remember a couple months ago, I was feeling a bit down and I told my mom, I think I'm a bit depressed, and she nearly lost her mind. And for her, it was like, oh my God, no, God forbid, you cannot be depressed in Jesus' name. And I get that. Yeah. Like church and God, and let's call the spirit of God. But I'm lucky enough to have a dad who is a psychiatrist. And the first thing he recommended is that I go and talk to a therapist, right? Talk to a therapist so we can work out what the roots of the situation is. And that's how I came out from that situation. And it's important that we start having those conversations in our homes, in our communities, in our schools, and in churches, in our religious, in mosque, in our religious environments as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think we're beginning to bring the issue home. And quickly, I want to move to Angel. Do you think Nigerian youths, how much of a problem do you think this is to an average young person? Tell us about what's on the mind of a young person in Nigeria concerning this.
Okay, once again, I want to thank Radio Nigeria for being here. I was here last year, so it's really interesting to be here again. But as a young person, I would say that it's quite interesting that the figures say that from 25 down to 64, if I'm not mistaken, that's where drug abuse is more rampant. For someone who is 20, I'll be 21 next month. I've been around people who are 20 and below, and I can tell you in a space of six people who are between the ages of 18 to 21, at least 2 people there are into drugs. So I don't know, maybe we can start by revisiting the figures in terms of age, because there are young people who are a lot younger that are into drugs. And just like Zim said, I think we read from the same manual. I do think that when you talk about the conversation between drug abuse, cybercrime, and the quick fix syndrome, there's the socio-economic factor with it. You think about education, lack of education. You think about poverty, the financial constraints. At the same time, too, you think about your agents of socialization, your peers, peer pressure. You also think about your family, too. You can't essentially bring up the conversation of depression without them asking you, what are you depressed about? So while there's the drug abuse, people may want to think that there's the drug abuse situation is only connected to the quick fix syndrome and the quest for money. You also think about people relying on drugs because they really do not know how to regulate their emotions. So it's easier to just rely on drugs. So while there's a nexus between these 3 activities, they also have their individual factors and what makes young people, drive towards that.
What exactly is it like? Now, these 18-year-olds, between 18 to 20-year-olds, as a matter of fact, that survey actually said 15. It's just that it's higher, from 20, according to that. But what you're saying now is that, from 18, it's even as high. So give us a picture, because these are people you know.
Yeah.
What exactly are they doing? You know, well, growing up, those of us who are millennials, there used to be some backyard shanty looking corners where boys would go, and you will know the kind of boys that go to those places. But these days, it's like more fluid. It's happening while you, and sometimes you don't even know. So give us a picture of how this is going on.
Okay, so one might think that taking drugs is mostly with people who are uneducated. But funny enough, you'd find that a lot of young people who take drugs are people who are honestly from well-to-do homes. So you ask the question, you most likely have everything. You're in a good school. Your parents are doing well. You pretty much have everything that the average person who is not from a well-to-do home would be searching for. So why are you doing this? Why some people even go as far as, engaging in the quick fix syndrome, people who are from rich homes. So you ask the question, and it's a thing of, one, they are mostly from homes, dysfunctional homes. So it's a thing of they rely on these drugs for some sort of, I don't even know, but for some sort of relief, let's say. And then you ask for the quick fix syndrome. Why is it? It's simply peer pressure. So now the abuse of drugs, the quick fix syndrome, there's no, this person has money, this person doesn't have money. Whether or not you have money is happening everywhere. Again, for people who have money, think about it on the basis of greed. That's just what it is. So in this day and age, you say,
so do they take it at night? They have to wake up in the midnight to take these things, or is it?
To be honest, there's no time for that really. Okay. You just take it when you can. And like she said, I can have a bottle with me and it's alcohol inside, or in my backpack, I can literally just create a little hole and I'm putting a pack of weed in there. So there's really no time for it.
Okay. Let's move to our economist, because she talked about, yeah, you can use the mic with her. So she talked about the economic aspect. Maybe can you, tell us what the connection is?
Right. Thank you for having me. I think I'm always frequent at Click Naija upstairs also.
Okay.
So thank you so much. I think the first thing we need to look at is our disposition. I think that's what we should start looking at. Unlike before, like she rightly said, we usually have corner joints where you usually go to exhibit this kind of character. But now it's something different now, because I think we need to go back to censorship. What I mean by censorship is that we are disposed to a lot of things that attract us to the negative externalities that could follow such drugs. And how do I mean by censorship? With your phone, there's a lot of things that you can see. With our media, when I mean media, I mean normal Nollywood that you can actually watch. There's a lot of disposition there that makes people want to get attracted to it. Then these drugs, are they cheap? That's another question. Are they actually cheap? Are they actually cheap? That's another question. Are they actually cheap? Because I actually directed to him. They are not cheap. So these are the things that we need to look at.
Does he know the price, sir?
Yeah,
Yes,
give you the prices of all the drugs.
Right.
So
that's the questions. Yeah, that is it actually cheap? That's where we should go. But because we are thinking about is because maybe it's actually expensive to go about it. Perhaps if you want to dodge and take drug, is it also cheap to dodge and take drug when you hide it from the immediate or your colleague in class or so it's something that we need to look at very, very critically. It has with action and inaction. So we have to tame anything that will expose you to such thing. If not, it will continue. And like he said, the focus said 30% possibility, right? 40%. So let's now.
You can always use the mic when we want to respond.
Okay, the projection was actually 40% rise, not 30. It's just the year 2030.
All right, in conclusion, let's look at ourselves here. They said 1 in 7 rise must have taken drugs. So can we use ourselves as the statistics? They now said 1 out of 5 also must have go through a bad experience or depression out of taking a drug for us to know the challenges that we actually face. So in conclusion, I think we have to go back to policy framework, which we need to do a lot of, and it has to start with community, school, government policy, and it involves virtually every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We want to just make sure that we go around the room, and then we'll have a much more fluid conversation, because the mics are actually with you, and we will be able to come in, at intervals. But I want to come this way now before I come back here. And I'm moving to David, because you are many things, including an economist as well. So David, he has talked about the economic factors. For me, looking at it like the price or how much it costs. But economic factors in terms of economic reasons behind even taking drugs in the first place. Do they exist? Are they there? And what are they?
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Radio Nigeria, for having me. Of course, I appreciate the insight shared so far. If I'm going to talk, I think there's a lot of Abuja people here, right? I'm a village man. I'm a village man. I work at the grassiest of the roots. So I relate with these guys. I meet with them. I sit with them. I founded an organization about 10 years ago, Equip Africa. And what we actually are out to do is to bridge socioeconomic gap in underserved communities. And in my work, I will mention names of villages that maybe you'd never in your life would have ever heard of, or you would never hear of, or ever get to visit. They're not on the map, and my work centered on around the border communities. So I don't know if my guys served in that area before, the Seme-border, Axis, Badagry, the Okoro. I can tell you all the corners in those places. So I think after this conversation, when the mic comes back to me, I'm going to play the devil's advocate. So if you permit me to do that, I'll be the youth, I'll be the young person who is actually hooked on these drugs. Okay. And I'm going to possibly
we'll be so happy.
And I'm going to possibly ask you questions based on my field experience. This is not, my field experience. Yeah. The truth is, if you look at the economic crisis of Nigeria today, is beyond the statistics. I'm not even saying, the youth unemployment and underemployment is over 60%, as we have today, according to Bureau of Statistics. But on the street, it's actually over 80%, right? Right. So I'm talking of underemployment and unemployment. So if you look at the economic indices and the current hardship we have in the country today, so drugs sometimes is a strategy of escapism for some of these young people, like Zim earlier said. Some of these people, if you go to places like Badagry, where drug smuggling is very rampant. Seme-border, the Betrome, the Babakupa, the Owodeakpa, the Agbodedos of this world, the Kaingo Beach. I'm sure a lot of you, there are across Nigeria today, there are over 1,600 unmanned entry points into the country. So I'm surprised most of the time you go to, along Seme Expressway, at Baji Bridge, you have NDLA there, and that's like the only place you have them. And when I see NDLA, when I see the work they do, I look at them, I smile, and but I agree, Seme access to Ogun State. There are over 700 unmanned entry points into the country. There are places where you see the parlor is in Nigeria, the kitchen is in Benin Republic. So the issues are very deep, right? And if you see the challenges people face today in terms of economic hardship, you'll be blown away, right? Number two that I think I'd like to say is that, you said drugs are expensive. When Zim said, it's not expensive, it's just about 8,000, naira for a pack of weed. What are you talking about? I will show you where you can get drug free. You get Igbo free. Do you understand? Boys, bring it, and it's available for free. Just suspend your problem. Just show up and it's available for you. Yeah. Another problem I think maybe we have not spotlighted, and maybe a lot of people might spotlight in the course of our conversation, is the fact that, you see, the normalization of display of wealth without necessarily, a transparent means of achieving the wealth is a major problem that we are not actually, maybe some of us, we're not looking at. Social media has become a thing today, and what wealth depicts to a lot of people is ability to smoke weed, have the money, and we are not necessarily transparent about how we got the money, right?
Or accountable.
So we are not, from our political leaders to see, I can tell you things that in this life, some of these top politicians, go visit them, right? Go visit them on a Monday morning. They are lost. I'm not saying people in our House of Rep in our Senate, go and visit them Monday morning. They are lost, and these are supposed to be our role models. These are people that are supposed to.
What do you mean by lost?
Gen Z will tell you.
Expatiate. Okay, it's a Gen Z language.
Gen Z will tell you. So the thing is, we are dealing with a lot. So if you look at it, some is for escapism, some is just for the show of the fact that, I can afford this thing, right? I used to live in Abuja before I left for the village, that zone 4 area there used to be a lot of drug peddling there. I must salute the work NDLE has done to clean that space up. When I got back and I saw that place is sane, I was like, wow, this is interesting, right? So the problem is a wicked problem. So, they are seeing it from policy angle. I'm seeing it from economic angle. I'm seeing it from even access angle. I'm seeing it from exclusion angle. When you look at people that live in underserved communities, this is the only life they know. This is the only life they're exposed to. Some people is transgenerational. They collect from parents.
So when people even feel as if nobody knows that they even exist, like the government does not even recognize that they are there.
They don't see government. They don't see, they just want to survive. Some people, that is how they make money. I'm telling you, that's how they make. I don't know what the report says. So that
becomes like their legit hustle.
It's not even legit. It's their only hustle. That's the only way they can put food on their tables. I don't know what the report says about the border, about that access, how drug find its way into the country. But I tell you, I kid you not, I know people that is their craft, right? That's what they use to make money. And the thing is, they just want to survive. The real people there is a destination for the drug, but they understand the terrain and they know how to maneuver the NDLEA, the people of the police, to make sure that, this drug makes its way into. And this is what we get when we continue to exclude our people, when we urbanize development, and, when we deliberately, intentionally, that's how I used to do it, yeah, deny people access to sustainable, inclusive, dignifying sources of income, and legitimate hustle. Not the hustle you're talking about, like really hard work.
Yeah.
People don't rate hard work anymore. I have a nephew, or I don't know, he's not my direct nephew, those cousin family. He's 23 years old. He's a Yahoo boy, right? And last year, July, he ran a deal that earned him 60 million naira in naira equivalents. Do you get what I'm saying? So what does someone like me want to tell that, or what will the father advise? What counsel do you have for that kind of guy? Do you understand what I'm saying?
He's waiting to hear. Okay, let me hear you.
So
after you finish, you show me your
let me drop the mic for now.
Yes.
When we get there,
thank you so much, David. We'll move straight to Dr. Harris. And like you said, I'm happy because you are willing and excited about wearing the shoes of the youth, yes, to play the devil's advocate, because it's going to really help us in this conversation. You have given us insight as to what is happening in the, unreached areas. We have our campuses, we have our schools, and you're a lecturer there, one of the campuses here in Abuja. I want you to tell us, we have another professor in the house, but when we get there, because we've raised so many issues, we've talked about, the economic and all that, and someone also talked about, the value system. And for me, that goes like to the family. So when I come this way, I think I would like to delve into that. But give us a picture of what this is like within the campuses, within the school, as a person who deals with young people. How much of a problem is it for you dealing with trying to get young people to even understand the process of or value the process of wanting to work for anything, wanting to and not look at this way that is before them to get what they want at the time they want it?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Click Naija and thank the Radio Nigeria for bringing us here. It's amazing, interesting conversation so far. And thank you for the question. I would just like to create a little background so that we have a little idea. We've spoken about the economic aspect. We've also spoken about the context, the Nigerian context. I want to speak about a little area that I think we probably will still talk about later, and that's the fact that drug abuse and drug use is often a function of habit. Habits are created by repetitive accumulation of behavior. And the idea, according to Woody et al. In 2021, they argue that every behavior that is conducted that produces a form of gratification has a propensity that it will be repeated. The more that behavior is repeated, then you are moving close to forming a habit. Then when you get to the point of habit, you can't control it because it becomes part of your daily routine, which you must do. And it's also important that we understand that these drugs have certain substances in them that have propensity to create addiction. Now you are not dealing with a person that is trying to do a quick fix, a person that is depressed. You are dealing with a person that was depressed, looked for drugs, and drugs did the job. And he kept on taking that drug whenever he felt depressed. And now he's no longer depressed, but he has a particular behavior that has been actually, that has been promoted because of the gratification that the person got by taking those drugs to do that. And then there is a habit now. So you are dealing with something that will take perpetual and consistent effort on a daily basis to deal with. And now when it is a habit, it's a matter of whatever I need to do to get what I want. I don't care. And so you see how that spiral into crime. This is a function of a habit, a routine. And if that is the case, it implies that you need to create methodologies and ways to ensure that that habit is serviced. And then to service that habit needs money. So you are deriving a level of pleasure from this particular behavior that nothing else can give you or has given you over time. And you know that drugs have a very close relationship with dopamine. And dopamine is a transmitter, among other things. It's also a receptor. And what dopamine does is that it's responsible for excitement at some high level. So that level of excitement is a feeling that can't be measured. And so when you have such a feeling, anything that makes you angry, you need a heightened feeling to counteract that particular thing. So now you are not just looking for a person to pacify you. You are looking for a feeling that is way above the way you have been triggered. And so if that is the case, it means that you perpetually will live on the lap of this particular habit. And that is how it goes on. And now the thing is that this habit is sponsored via finance and money. And when we started talking about drugs that are expensive, I say most poor people start with drugs that are not really drugs, but are worse than drugs because they are cheap. So you can get things like solution and you improvise.
You hear that people burn tires.
And then, yes, you go to gutters, you sniff gutters, you improvise. Your hope as a person is that there is a goal you are hoping to get to, that you'll be fortunate to meet people that are at the echelon, the upper echelon, who have the money to spend on these things and be friends with them, because there is a very easy methodology to create communities around drug use. They are friendly with themselves. They have a high sense of loyalty, high sense of understanding, and a very high sense of intellectual reasoning, which does not produce any result but talking. So they talk very intelligently. But when it comes to acting that talk, which is one of the ways to measure a person's cognitive coherence, they have a problem there. So some of them start with those cheap ones that end up messing the brain up. So by the time they get to those other ones, they are already gone. And there is nothing you can do. And one of the things that I've noticed on campuses is that a lot of them do not necessarily know about these drugs. They just have one guy that infiltrates the gang. So the guy comes and is living fly. He's hardly sad. This guy is so sad all the time. And his roommate is never sad. He sees his roommate going through difficult times. And sometimes the roommate tells him some stories that are very pathetic. And he's shocked at how the roommate is managing it. And so he asks what the roommate is going through. And then that is how they recommend. And trust me, you want to understand what marketing is? Let a drug user market a drug. And then you have an understanding of what marketing is. You think you know marketing? Marketing, that's the best form of marketing. And then they market by giving you a free trial. And so the free trial is an initiation system.
Discount.
And trust me.
Volume discount.
So once that happens, you see that because they know that the gateway is to take. Once you take it, they know you will do the job of looking for money via any means necessary to make sure that you get it. So
the people who are marketing it, are they particularly hooked on this?
Yes, often. Those are, in fact, real drug dealers have the principle and the policy of not being hooked on their own supplies. So they use the people that are their perpetual customers to do that, because most times it's always difficult to have money with you as if you're a drug dealer. A particular renowned clinical psychologist, Jordan Peterson, said one of the ways to deal with drugs is to make sure that the system by which it can be purchased is not made available to the user. If they don't have money, they will hardly use it. So often than not, you see that these people who are drug users are the ones who market. Who market. And then you see in campuses that they come around and they begin to infiltrate. And some of these young ones who don't know how to deal with it, that are going through little issues, they just get hooked on it. And lastly, one of the key issues we have is that we trivialize important things, the young people, and make a lot of case for unimportant things. So you see a person whose lecturer said, I don't like the way you behaved today. This is very, very wrong. Don't do this again. And for this, I will make sure that I speak to your parents. He's heartbroken. He needs to get a fix. You're telling him you are coming late. Hope you are not trying to capitalize on your parents' willingness to train you to do what you are doing. He feels very sad. We have a very funny definition of depression. Very funny definition of what can trigger a person. And then when you now see those that are really going through depression, you are wondering how this person is also going through the same kind of depression that other person is going through. So we have people who are going through real issues and have people who are going through nothing but have made so much out of it. And it is a system created to justify their drug use. And lastly, Nigeria needs to do something about it. When you look at statistics, Nigeria has one of the largest youth population in the world. And if you have people, the global statistics from UN Drug and Crime, UN Office of Drug and Crime says it's from 15 to 62, 64. And then you have the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics saying from 25 to 39. Okay, the same report. So when you look at this, you discover that we have a problem. Because if we have a high population of young people, the future has a problem if we have over 14 million people hooked on drugs. It means that out of every 7 person or 5 person, 1 is hooked on it. And we have over 3 million women that are hooked on it. And we also have people, 1 out of every 8 person has experienced the consequences of drug use, but it is not doing anything to stopping it. It means that this does not just deal only with economic situation and other issues that we also pointed out, but there's a place for behavior and habit. And there's a need for us to change our mindset, create a system to be a therapist, and then try to see how we can work our way around it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What you just said now kind of like brings to question, the fear. Would we soon have a generation that will be non-existent if something is not done? Mr. Jafaru, I'm coming to you now because you are an AI and IT expert and all that. And we've linked all this to the scam, the entire cyber crime and cyber scam, thing going on. What is the situation like in terms of cyber security, cyber crime, and the prevalence with young persons, based on the work that you have been doing so far?
Okay, so I've heard a lot, so I'm trying to digest.
Yes.
Okay, so thinking where to start from. She made mention of one getting into drugs as a result of peer pressure, and you ask a question to Angel as regards how these things are being done, and I was just asking myself, my wife actually is a counselor, and she gets a whole lot of, at times she just comes to the house and if she asks questions that I know that is related to some of these things, I will just know that, okay, she probably must have encountered one or two issues in our workplace. So, sincerely, these drugs, at times, they can be in chocolates. You would not even know that these kids are actually on drugs. It would be inside chocolates. At times, you will see them in mints. To you, even as parents, to you think that they are taking mints, not knowing that that's drug. Let me personalize some of these things. Looking at the angle she came from, that we should even look at how we would add alcohol, as we should begin to look at alcohol as part of drugs, because it is, if you want to look at it in its reason.
From NDLA, just so you chip that in, is alcohol part of the drug list, abuse list?
Alcohol. I was actually, thank you for that. I was actually when she mentioned that the most abused, but because alcohol is categorized as socially permitted.
Okay.
That's why it's not. Yeah, you call them gateway.
Okay.
They are usually alcohol, cigarette. They're actually things that young people start with.
The gateway.
But then when you're talking of
drug abuse,
they are not categorized as illicit.
Okay.
Per se.
All right. So that said.
Okay. So while I completely I agree from the point of experts, both alcohol, the codeine, and all, they practically do the same thing. If not, that the whole essence is the abuse of the drug. And once upon a time, 2011, let me take us back history lane. I got promoted in my place of work, so I took my friends out. Promotion today, so let's go. You understand? So we went out and we did a little bit of declaration. And a lady that was sitting beside me, I used to take Star, and I mix mine with spin-off ice. So
just that. Eh? I saw your reaction there. Okay, right on.
So after they served me my first bottle and I've mixed it, a lady beside me requested for Coke.
What?
Coke. So I was like, okay, is that what you want? She said, yes, that's what she wanted. Then after I took my first sip, she asked a question. She said, why do you drink alcohol? Sincerely, I tried to answer that question. I couldn't.
Especially in that state.
I had not even started. That was my first, so it was not as though I was intoxicated.
Not like you
I just realized that I just wanted to be among. I wanted to feel among those that are doing this. It's not as though that this thing is bitter. And I never knew all that until that question popped up.
Very valid point.
Peer pressure is a major gateway to these things. While we're looking at it from that angle, now let me come to the angle of technology and cybercrime. Be it drugs, be it cybercrime, they are symptoms. So let's go to the roots. They are all symptoms. And the root cause, there was a research that was carried out by a guy from Nasarawa, I've forgotten his name. He brought about 4 different root causes of cybercrime. And I believe it also aligns with drug. The first he mentioned is the disconnect in our social contract between the citizens and the government. The citizens largely don't believe that the government can do anything again for them. The citizens believe now they just have to fend for themselves. No, gone are the days where you graduate from school and you feel that, you know what, there's a job waiting for me. And our parents will be telling us this story that in school they come to pick the best 4, the best 5, and they are giving them jobs at Shell. And those that are graduating now are looking for the jobs.
We have a first class Brad in there. How many offers?
You get so the truth of the matter is that the youth no longer believe in the ability of the government to make do and make that in fulfilling the social contract that they promised during campaigns. And you find out that in some cases, promises are made because they need to be made, not that they need to be kept. So that's the first angle. Then the second angle, there is a strong degradation in our social and family values. Gone are the days when somebody comes home with 500 naira and you as the mother or the father knows that you did not give him or her. You will take it. Go and show me who gave you that money. But these days, having been involved with training.
We even asked you, didn't you see your mate coming back?
Having been involved with training youth, I've seen situations where some persons came to meet me and asked me, hello, please, I need to learn hacking. And because my guys are doing it, so I need to learn hacking because I also want to go get involved into the skill of hacking. It's not as though that they want to do it ethically, they want to use it to engage in cybercrime. And I've had people meet me and say, if I know the kind of knowledge you know in hacking, I know what my bank account would have been. And we've seen situations where mothers will buy laptops for their children and take them and enroll them in HQs. Mothers go to the market, buy laptop for their children and enroll them in where they will learn cybercrime. Those cases are prevalent. It's not even been, if you go to the route, to the village, to villages. In fact, my village is now something else because the youth in my village are no longer, they no longer want to go to school because cybercrime is now the order of the day. They just want to get a laptop and get to HQ and start making money. So there is a strong degradation in our societal and family values. We no longer know what is right. We no longer align with what is right. We just want to ensure that, you know what, as long as money is coming in and people are not looking at our family to be among those. There is nothing like good name written in our family dictionary again. Gone are the days where your name is very, very important to you and to even your children. The third thing that has encouraged cybercrime and drugs is the lack of the legal frameworks. We don't have legal frameworks. There are countries where I wrote a book on cybercrime. I wrote a book on Cyberspace Chronicles, exploring digital technology, the cyber criminals' mindsets, and the need for cyber police. The Chapter 9 of the book are largely over 150 different recommendations that can be implemented to make our cyberspace secure. And one of those recommendations was for us to have what I consider to be cyber intelligence officers in the dark web. Now, what's the dark web? The dark web is the place of atrocities. It's a portion of the internet that is unknown. You can't access it from your regular phones. You can't go to Google and browse it. It's never there. It's not there, but it's on the internet. There's a special tool used to access it. That's where drugs Lord, that's where they do their communications from. That's where they communicate. That's where you go there like your regular Amazon and Jumia and you shop for drugs, different drugs in different sizes and quantity. So,
is government aware of this dark?
I believe they are. They should be aware. So, I believe we should have cyber intelligence officers, those who live and sleep and wake up from the dark web. Because you can't hack into the dark web. You can't crack it. It's practically uncrackable. Yeah, well, there is no word like uncrackable as long as cybersecurity is concerned, but it's strong. The encryption system there is strong. It's built on the internet. So if what I believe the government can do is to have officers in that space, living there, waking up, pretending to be drug lords, pretending to be suppliers, pretending to have to be part of the system and the workflow process of how to acquire and also be a taker of these drugs. And with that, they understand the systems by observation, learning where drugs comes from. In fact, there is a market called the Silk Road market on the dark web. It tends to be it was the highest. It was the market with the highest turnover, running into billions of dollars. And the owner of the Silk Road market was actually arrested. And how was he arrested? Because agents of DEA had to pretend to be users of these drugs, and they went into the dark web, bought drugs, and they found out that about drugs were coming from about 10 different countries. So we need to get involved. We need to these are part of the framework that needs to be put in place. There's also another thing that was recommended in that book is establishing what is known as cyber police. Beyond just we've grown. There is no form of crime that happens in the physical space that you don't have a replica in the cyberspace. Even as simple as kidnapping. Only that in the cyberspace they kidnap your data. Yes. You have access to your data, you are seeing your data, but you can't have access to them because it has been kidnapped. And you need to pay what is known as ransom for you to be given the decryption key so that you can now decrypt your data and have access to your own data. But these are not even the kind of crime that our Yahoo boys are doing, but they are getting there because I've had to interact with some of them who I know are learning this thing called hacking. The ones that they engage in is what's known as social engineering. Social engineering is the tweaking. It is an act of manipulating somebody to do what he or she does not want to do. And we are skilled at that. Nigerians are skilled at that. And that's why we are dominating the social space. We are good at social engineering. We're dominating the social space. And as a result of all of these, it looks as though that aspect of cybercrime, or that aspect of cybercrime is largely African. Meanwhile, it's at this point, it's good for me to make us to know that the 2024 Global Cybercrime Index placed Nigeria as 5th country with cybercrime incident originates from. After Russia, US, China, Ukraine, Nigeria is the 5th.
We don't come close to these countries in development.
Now, when you want to look at, when you want to even look at it from the angle of why Russia and Ukraine, you will know that the war is a major factor. The war between Russia and Ukraine. There's also a cyber war going side by side as the physical war is happening. Then you want to look at China and US. You know that yes, there is a trade war going between two of them. So they are trying to steal each other's intellectual property. But for Nigeria, there is nothing. You are not in a war. You are not doing any. You are not trying to contest for any economic dominance. You're just there, and it's the youth of your population that are engaging in cyber crimes, scamming others, and ensuring that it's sad.
So that tells us that there's something in the minds of the youth. Do you understand that we haven't found out that is their own reason why they are doing all this? Because if you have these reasons as why these countries, for Nigeria, there is no documented reason. But the people who are doing it do have their reason. Perhaps when we get that reason,
if we can solve the social contract between the citizens and the government, if we can bring back our society and family value, if we can design policies, like I mentioned, cyber police, we have the National Cybercrime. Yes, it's good to mention we have the National Cybercrime, the National Cybercrime Center under the Nigerian Police Force, and they are doing an amazing job because I've had to work with them. But beyond that, we need to grow to a state whereby there is the National Cyber Force in the UK. The US has a military arm specifically for cyber force. We don't have any of such in this country. So we need to do. And the fourth thing, just to wrap up, the fourth thing is the fact that the internet generally, the first reasons why people get involved in cybercrime is that the internet is never secured. It was not built with security in mind. Tracing it back to history. Internet there was no security as part of the concept when the design of internet came to play. So it is like an addendum in the course of play. So because of that challenge, there will always be a loophole, and that's the loophole that cyber criminals try to exploit.
All right, let's move to Prof in the house. I want us to bring it to the family finally with you. before we open the next part of this conversation. What role, because we've all said it, saliently, what role do you think, the family unit or system has contributed in all this? At what stage, where can we place the family unit presently in our society?
Thank you for giving me this invitation, and I thank the radio house too. Let me quickly, before I answer your question, tell my brother here that there is war between the government and the citizen.
Okay.
Yes, because
that is the war.
That is the war. Where you have over 60% of our youth not employed, it is a war. These young men are growing. They are looking ahead to get married. They are looking ahead to build their houses. They are looking ahead to have their cars. Yet there's nothing on ground. So what do you expect them to do? They must survive. So that's the war between the government and the citizen. We need to create job for these children. If actually we want this war of drug abuse and cybercrime to come down. And just as Oga at my left here said, if we don't do anything serious now, not only 40%, it will most likely going to be above 60% in the next 5 years. Because presently, you discover that every young man, and maybe let me put a woman, a young lady too, their thinking is just how to make it. They just want to make it. Why? Because, first of all, there's poverty. There's poverty in the land. And unfortunately, I will still come back to your question. There's poverty in the land, and a father cannot provide for his son. So where do we go? Secondly, the media houses. You are culprits too, because you evangelize people that have made money from nowhere. And these children are seeing them. Thirdly, just as
do you mean the media houses or social media? Which one?
The media houses, social media, all of it. Huh? So, then he talked about legal framework. There's no punishment for these crimes in this country. That's the major thing. Even in your house, in those days, when we see our father coming, we run away because you know that there is going to be a punishment for what you have done. But today, there's no punishment. Government will just say blah, blah, blah. In fact, yesterday, somebody was convicted of stealing 250 billion naira. What? He was to pay 230 million. 250 billion, and he's to pay 230 million. Not up to a million, not up to a billion, and he will go free. So if I'm still a young man, I don't know which one I belong. I think I'll go ahead and steal 500 billion. That is the truth about it. There's no punishment. The legal system has collapsed. Our judges are just there making money and creating all sorts of confusion in the country. Coming to the family value has collapsed. In fact, presently in my university, we are involved in paying school fees of some children. Believe you me, their parents cannot pay their school fees. So in that situation, if such a child have access to cyber space to make money, are you going to stop him? You can't stop him. In fact, today, when you are lecturing, students will be using their phone to trade. Oh, so there's nothing you can do about it. So for us to tackle this menace, government still have large portion to do in providing jobs for people. And I'm very, very sure the government of today can provide that. Maybe as we go on, I'll tell you how the government has been misusing our money, and there's nothing we can do about it. But when I came and I saw something like raising useful voice for national development, I said, okay, maybe by the time the youth start talking, most likely government will listen to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So my question goes to the director and the LEA. I have two questions for you. The first one, she spoke about socioeconomic factors as one of the reasons why this situation is escalated. Do you think the government is, because you said government is putting in place measures to curb this situation, do you think the government is doing enough to fight these issues, this menace that we are facing in our society? And secondly, do you think NDLEA can actually arrest this situation as it is?
All right. Your question, I would say there are two sides of a coin. Now, what we have all been discussing here since boils down to the causative or predisposing factors. That is, the factors that are responsible for these ills. Now we have come to, okay, how do we address, how do we prevent, and in situations where we're facing the real issue, the real ailment, now how do we treat the ailment? First, there is, when you talk about the socioeconomic factor, that is one of the predisposing or causative factor. Poverty is at the bottom, at the basis. And that's why we have all been agitated. Oh, government has not been doing this, government. But then we also have to, why I agree that, like I was sharing with my colleague here, that indeed that's largely number one factor. But then that's not the only factor. We have also said in our submissions here that indeed there are many homes where people, where to do. They are involved. I am directly involved in this, so I can tell you the demographics of people we have been arresting. Not only people that, these days we provide support to those who are users, but then people that are also dealing, that are also trafficking in these things, they are also from well-to-do, educated people. We've seen, even within the cyberspace, we've arrested doctors who are dealing in this thing in the cyberspace. We've arrested several graduates, but largely youths also. That I can tell you. So indeed, we have to go back to where he concluded, where he landed. That is the basis. This problem starts from the home, the family unit. That is the smallest unit of the society. Now, we have what is called intentional parenting. How many homes do we have intentional parenting? How many homes do we have intentional parents? For instance, starting from, somebody mentioned that even some parents buy laptops for their kids and even enroll them in HQ. Why would that be? So we have to go back to the basics. Parents have to be parenting. Parents have to go back to parenting. When your kids come back home with that backpack, do you check what is inside of it? When there is a change in the pattern, the lifestyle of your kid, of your son, of your daughter, do you check, do you find out what's responsible and what action do you take? So that is one. Then can the NDLEA address is, I'll tell you, I can stay here for the rest of the day and address some of the things we have been doing. First, there has to be, and this is what FRCN through Click Naija is addressing, raising awareness. There has to be, I was saying there is a saying that an ounce spent on prevention is worth 10 penny spent on enforcement, law enforcement or treatment, meaning that is another way of saying prevention is better than cure. So we have to raise awareness. And one of the things the agency has been doing is through its war against drug abuse social advocacy initiative, taking this, fortunately, profits from University of Abuja. We're working with the University of Abuja. We've gone there to launch drug-free campus campaign. We've gone there. I mean, they have a WADA club or drug-free club there in the University of Abuja. We're working with the leadership. We've had meetings with them. All of this and ensure that, I mean, again, I also, University of Abuja is one of the universities in Nigeria that has adopted a drug integrity test policy. That is because we know our young ones, first, we have to apply this so that first, not as punishment, but to create some deterrence. And again, to bring early support, early help, early treatment to those who test positive. For instance, those who are going to school, that's one on the prevention side. And I want to tell you that in the law enforcement, we have two wings. That's the demand reduction. If you can't prevent somebody from taking these illicit substances, that's at the level of awareness, creating awareness across the country, at the schools, at the home front, workplaces, worship centers, and the communities level. And for those that are already hooked on these drugs, what do? We provide treatment for them. We have 30 treatment and counseling centers across the country. We have 3 new model ones, and I'll tell you, in the last 3 years, we had more than 33,000 people that have gone through these facilities. That's also a huge figure.
So I think maybe also part of the question is this a problem that can NDLEA, is this a problem NDLEA can handle, or does it look bigger?
This is not about, that's why I'm trying to address. This is not about, let's limit it to NDLEA.
Okay.
It's a collective thing. That's what I'm trying to put through to us. That's why our war against drug abuse, social advocacy, WADA social advocacy, is to mobilize the citizenry to buy in and take ownership of the fight itself. Meaning that at your level, you have your own sphere of influence, you have a role to play. As parents, you have a role to play. As religious leaders, you have a role to play. As a community leader, you have a role to play. At the level of the government also has roles to play. So that's the way we should see it.
One of the set of people brought here are politicians, really. But let's also have the room, because we understand the circumstances under which this is being produced. So we wouldn't want to have that doubt on again. I want to start with him playing the devil's advocate, and it will come to you, because I want us to start bringing solutions to the table. Or we should go exactly, because you know why I'm saying so. Let's hear what the typical, user would be wanting.
Sincerely, I wish we had maybe longer time to have this conversation. I was, myself and my brother, we had a bit of conversation just during the downtime. You see, I'm sorry, sir. I understand the work you do. I celebrate the work you do at NDLEA. I think that these tests that we are subjecting our students to, most of your officers also need to be subjected to those tests.
They do. I'll tell you. There's no way you take that to you. There's no way you take a message to somebody and you don't believe in the message. We do, and the way we do it is across our offices. We don't do it. It's not scheduled. It's unscheduled.
That's if there has not been an institutional framework because if there is anything I know, again, like I said, I'm speaking not as an elite. I'm speaking as a grassroots man. I'm speaking as somebody who I've lost a lot of young, brilliant people to drugs. Because I have an innovation center. So it hurts me every time. For every time I see a soul perish in quotes to drugs, it hurts me deeply, right? And me personally, I can tell you that I know NDLEA officers that are suppliers of these drugs to these people.
If you know, then
we have reported. If it is to report, my organization have gone ahead
the table. If you have something
to report some of these cases over and over again.
Who do you report to?
Your offices.
No, don't please. When you are, we have contacts for some things. Please come to, for instance, my number is everywhere. We have social media handles where you can bring these things to us. And apart from that, we also have toll-free lines where people can provide information about things happening they want to report in the area of law enforcement, and even for those who seek treatment.
I appreciate the work you do. You know, I mean, I've worked in the internet governance space as well. I think I spoke to you about it. We saw the current Nigerian Data Protection, Act, Now, I mean, I was one of those that actually worked on the framework as well. So, and the reason why I come into spaces like this is because I work with a lot of young people. I have an innovation center in Badagry, just basically to address the issue of digital inclusion across, the underserved communities. I mean, taking it from my own personal experience, I grew up in a very underserved community, and the problem, I think, one of the major problems I think we need to solve at family level is that there has been role reversals in terms of responsibilities in families today.
True.
You see people, you see children that are, I mean, I told him my house in Lagos.
Taking on
my house in Lagos is a rehabilitation center. I have 10 people living in my house right now as I speak to you. I'm not even around there. And basically what I'm trying to do is to even somehow legally yank these people off their parents, create a saner environment for them to even be able to try something, to thrive and to thrive for their lives. And I'm excited at where this, yes, please.
If speaking for one of these persons right now, what would be that ideal thing that you'll be saying that it's like putting the mic in their mouth to ask or to say this is what should be, how things should be?
You see, I think because I mean timing is not even. I wanted to start throwing questions at people, but time we don't. I just want to maybe get to the crux because we're rounding off on the third. You see, we have all said it. This is what happens when government deliberately disenfranchises its people and not create enabling opportunity for them to earn income from their skill, from their talent, to build relevant skills and earn. That is why I think that all of us, I was telling him, if they tell him 2027, come and run for House of Assembly, now he will run away, or come and run for the councillorship of your community, he will not do it. That's why some of us are coming into politics. I ran for House of Assembly in the last general election, and that's because I want to be involved in policy making at the grassroots level. I'm really concerned about the people. That's what happens. We need to be careful. We need to be very deliberate. Everybody is shouting about Tinubu today. Nobody is talking about their House of Rep member. Nobody's talking about their councillor. Nobody's talking about their local government chairman. So we need to actually deliberately look into how we can, both as private sector. I'm not one that look at government for everything. I want to see what I can solve. I'm saying what I am doing, right? I think we need to democratize such initiative to see how we can create. I have boys that were hooked on drugs. I told him I adopted a boy at the age of 14, right? He's a son of a military man whose father had been transferred to Boko Haram at the time. The mother was selling panaga. All right. So what do you expect of such a boy? He couldn't go to school at the time. But interestingly, that brought us together. I brought this guy to live in my house. I mean, he used to come to my office, come and learn computer, graphics, would disappear. When I saw the trend, somebody told me about his family. I had to bring him to live with me, right? And fast forward 4 years in my house, he became a solid graphic designer. Of course, we brought them into a community of mentors. One of the communications and brand clinical of one company, because of, I don't want to give free adverts to the company here, brought him in as an intern at the age of 19 and to seek an entry-level job. The first salary they paid that boy was 600,000 naira. Today is 23. He's the head of department. When my friend left, he replaced the guy. He does not even have a university degree yet. This is what happens when we enable people to build relevant, in-demand skills and connect them to economic opportunities. If you continue to do that, I think better.
Let me just quickly, there is the US labor, the Department of Labor is projecting that by 2030, there's going to be 80.5 million tech jobs on field. The opportunities are massive.
Amazing.
As at now, cybersecurity, which is a field I am currently engaged in, have a workforce gap of about 4.8 million.
But it looks like the young ones are only seeing the cybercrime path and going towards it. They are not seeing these opportunities.
Training skill.
Sorry. If I can just come in. So David said something a bit earlier about the rise of social media and why, and this is actually why intentional parenting is very important now, because back in the day, if you went around to raise your kids, you had a community of people who had more or less the same values of you that raised your children. Now your children can get raised by anybody. Russia, from China, from the US. And a lot of what social media does is it shows you the high life, but there's no context. So you see someone who is 23 and just bought a car. You have no context for what you see Cubana flying from one place to another. You see one other person fly jet setting. Today in Maldives, tomorrow in. So like there's no context. And this is what I'll say. We have the Igbo apprenticeship program. Outside of the Igbo apprenticeship program, the biggest program the biggest career that gives training is Yahoo Yahoo. You're talking about HQs and how they bring people in and they teach. How many of the people sitting here, you have the things that you do, you have your role. How many people are you mentoring? How many people are you actually teaching to do what you do? Because what our parents know no longer applies. Like someone said, what they knew is you go to school, you graduate with a good degree, you come out, you get a good job, go and work for someone. Now you actually need to generate jobs, and our parents don't have the skills for that. So what are you doing in your own community to make sure that you're doing that? Underemployment, in my opinion, is worse than unemployment, because you have some people here talking about they are doing internship, but you go for internship, they are paying you 30,000 naira in internship. When you calculate the transportation to the place, you're spending more than 30,000 naira a month. Why would anybody want to do that? So in your own places, in your own communities, in people that can walk to your house, can walk to your office, how many of them are you teaching to do what you do, to be like you? Because if they see how to do what it is that we're doing, then maybe we have less people pursuing the opportunities that the ones that are actually Yahoo boys, they train a lot of people.
There is a story before the glory. You have to. There's also the place where you would learn and subject yourself to knowledge, and that story. The story behind that thing is usually not palatable. You have to endure it. How many youth of these days wants to endure?
Just to speak about this, I just want to say a few things. I appreciate what we are discussing, but I want to talk about this. I think that it's a Nigerian problem. And I don't know how this will work. I just hope that you can tell them. We don't see things through in this country. And it's bad. You talk about rehabilitation. It is done halfway. You go to check and do, and this is one of the key problems we have with the Nigerian system. We shout and clamor about things too much. When it comes to actually doing that thing, we do it haphazardly, and then we do it peripherally, and you go to the nitty-gritty to now interact with those that claim to have been beneficiaries of this thing, and they tell you pathetic stories about it. We have children we have rehabilitated, 40,000, 50,000. How rehabilitated are they? Let me land, sir. And then we have people that have experienced this. Okay, they have experienced this. How sure are we that we are checking on them? 5 years, 6 years down the line, DMX died of drug overdose. The idea behind DMX drug overdose was that he had stayed out away from drugs after some time, for a while, because he went for rehabilitation. And he had been staying away from it, and he had an opportunity to do it. He wanted to recollect and cover up the days he didn't take it, and he died of overdose. Let me just answer. And this thing I'm saying is, most initiatives in Nigeria don't see the light of day. The new government comes, it changes the policy, brings new persons, and that man probably does not have the need to pursue that same trajectory.
Let me create a context for rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, especially when it comes to drugs, it's a very technical, complex, and difficult situation. It's not what you treat like malaria, and you are discharged, you go home, you are well. It's more likely that you return in a lot of cases because it's a chronic mental situation, sickness, that relapses more often than not.
Yes, sir.
So there are quite a lot of factors responsible. For instance, the factors responsible for the person going into substance abuse ab initio, has it been addressed in his family, in his community, in his society. So those are issues that, and so that's why you see people going in, you see some people go in and out of rehab centers 5, 6, 10 times. Some people don't even survive it at all. So that I just need us to put
one more thing I want to add. In terms of sensitization, I have a PhD in development communication, so this matters to me a lot. I have looked at Nigerian adverts. They are terrible in comparison to the adverts for alcohol. You look at a Star Lager Beer alcohol advert and you juxtapose it with an advert from NDLA preaching against taking alcohol.
Come on.
The beauty is nothing to rhyme home about when you juxtapose both of them. And so you see that there are films, we can use film to do this, but the films are terribly produced. You can even feature some of the Nigerian adverts and things like that on platforms, and students or children will look at it. And we have a major youth population. So when we say
so it looks like we have left glamour, right, to people who do not really know the values of what they want to promote. So we that have the real values, we don't use the glamour. And it's like we are trying to make glamour look like a bad thing.
Exactly. I want to.
That's what the youth are interested in.
I am soliciting. I'm pleading. I'm not saying we should do it every time. We can have one advert that's just a kicker. MTN does amazing with this. Their advert is so short, precise, straight to the point, and you would want to watch it again. There is this advert on Airtel. Yes, the music in the background is just so Afro pop. You want to watch the advert again because of the music. And I'm saying this to say, sensitization is not about placards and running around. No. Since it's a young people's thing, we are dealing with people that have phones.
We need to speak their language.
We should speak their language, and we have to ensure that the adverts are catchy.
Please, I want to bring this perspective, please. And perspective is that most time we look at everybody as anybody who make money quick as Yahoo. We need to also look at it critically. A man came to me and said, look at my son. Look at his Benz. I want him to come down from this Benz he's using. And I've been following this boy for the past 2 years. This boy is just graduating, but he has a Benz. He has his house in Guarin. But how does he get it? I tried to find out. This boy has been coding for a company in America and has been making money. And the money, I can tell you, the money is legit. His younger one are in Veritas. This boy paid for them. And within 2 years, that change actually came. And because he just learned 3 months on how to code. So we must be careful when we say every person we see that just make money quickly or that is not a graduate is also a young person. This is a practical thing. Then in addition, what will happen in the next 30 years? I want to talk to him directly. See, we are going to have old society in the next 30 years. Take it or leave it in Nigeria. Old society in Nigeria. Take it or leave it.
Old society, is that what you say?
Yes, in the next 30 years.
Why so?
Please.
Thank you. So. Next 30 years, add 30 years to my age. What will it give me? Everybody here, add 30 years to their age. What will have happened? Now, at this age, how many of us will be at 30 and want to marry? Very rare. If you marry, are you going to give birth to 7 or 8 or you've managed to? Look at that statistic. So in the next 30 years, my question to him now is that how are we now going to show that those that are into drugs now will not become a drug lord at that period? That will now recruit people who will now be like Mexico. We must look into that very well. That's just my point.
In research, most times there are the unanswered questions.
I just
so you fall under the rhetorics, Abi. Okay.
I think what I would ask us to that's a rhetorical question that all of us have to answer. Don't let us
look at NDLA.
Exactly. That's why I try to do that, because whether we like it or not, even if you don't have anybody abusing illicit substances or dealing with illicit substances in your house, in your family, in your community, you could still be a victim because you go on the road. You are not the only one on the road. There are people on the road. For instance, you may be driving your own luxury car on the road. You are saying you are normal, you are not on drugs. The other person beside you may not be. And lo, the guy rams into you.
And you're done.
And you're gone. That's why we all have to take responsibility.
I agree with you.
Like he said, he said, he saw a young man. I have done what exactly he said he's doing.
Right.
I mean, a lot of us, we have to take this as a collective thing. You see people in your sphere of influence trying to impact.
Yes.
That one person would impact on
Yes.
one or two more person, and that
Yes.
is how the society
Yes.
runs.
I actually agree with you. Remember when I started my talking, my first message, I said family, community, government policy. I agree NDLA is working. In fact, my younger sister in my house work with NDLA. So, and that exposes me to the level at which you guys are.
She has told me.
She has told you. Are you sure? So, all right.
Sorry, just a very quick one. There are three important points I think I want to make. Is that there needs to be interagency collaboration. You need to, I think, and NOA has NOA has become a very redundant, agency.
Coming up, and that agency is coming.
We pray that it comes up. Please, just three important points. Yeah. Number one is that I think we need to be very careful the way we assess our youth in terms of, how many of them can endure pain? How many of them are patient? Baba, be lucky that you have the kind of, that's why I say I want to play the devil's advocate. If you see people that have been through pain, fear will catch you, bruv. And the things that they've had to endure. And Zinchi said something about underemployment. I've seen people resign from banking to become Olosho in this same city of Abuja.
What is Olosho, David?
Oh, sorry.
Well,
that's a, she's going to explain to you.
Why are you pushing everything to Gen Z?
Because I'm millennial.
all right. I think you want to say something quickly within the next 30 seconds because I would like to hear finally
from Gen Z.
Our Gen Z.
From Gen Z. It's very important.
Everything has been provided them.
All right.
Okay, so sincerely, there are youths that can endure. I'm not disputing that, but the challenge here is that there are a whole lot of like she said, there are a whole lot of results that we see on social media, and everybody assumes that there is no story behind that result, and they just want to get that result and not pass through the story that brings forth that result. That's the point I'm driving
Okay,
at.
so
Not that we can't endure.
And then
We should also know that before you achieve that particular result, you must have passed through.
And I think the thing is that now the internet has made making money a little easy. They tell you tap.
but it never worked. It was a huge scam. And
the tapping.
gladly,
Many people went into depression because of that tapping. That's just so
Right.
that also saying they're dealing with a lot. All right. Yes, please.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to talk about the endurance culture because that was the conversation I was having with Mr. David. I was telling him that I work a remote job now. So imagine working in a company and they decide to pay you 150,000 when you can work remotely for another for a different organization outside of the country, and they are paying you 200,000. Obviously, I'm going to take that. So I don't like how we are so comfortable and so complacent with this suffer culture in Nigeria. To be honest, like it's been rather depressing for me because even when I started working my online job, I felt a way like, oh, I'm not outside hustling like the rest. But it's like sometimes things can come very easily for you, and that really shouldn't be, a problem. And then another thing,
So you feel like we glamorize too much. We attach too much to this so-called hard work thing. We have to suffer first.
and I do feel like
What
sometimes
it means is that your generation don't think that we need to suffer as much as we are suffering in order to make it. Yes. And that there's nothing wrong with this. So he has suffered the suffer. All right, Angel. Angel.
Well, the thing you did say about endurance is something that I am personally not comfortable with because I interned at a company and I wasn't paid anything, like not even a transport allowance. And I think that they had taken advantage of that. That's why I am not keen on, I go to an organization and the first thing they tell me is you're here for the experience. Because while I'm here for the experience, I'm using my hands as...
So upon the time, you were there for the experience. And at that time, nobody would be willing to pay you.
I shouldn't suffer trying to get
just to say something.
We have normalized this thing.
Excuse me,
It's an
David.
abuse
I
of our young
want
people.
to address that. I want to address that, and I'm doing this as a courtesy to every young person. Learn this: not every work will give you money. There should be a time in your life where even if you can be paid, you should work for free. There is something that happens with money when you put it ahead of you. You become a chaser.
The economic state of Nigeria is not a...
Where you are, there are complex systems.
I will tell you
Doctor,
I will tell you for the fact that
yes.
I am an anomaly because my parents are able to cater for me. But think of the other average Nigerian that doesn't have money and you're telling them that they're coming to work there for the experience. It's impossible. Nobody is going to take that.
Anyway,
all right.
David is the king of Gen Z, so maybe he has something.
No, I'd rather listen to him first before I speak.
I think
You know.
I think that's very valid, and we do have a tendency to look down on the Gen Z experience and the young people experience. This doesn't happen in senior climbs. You can't go to the US or to the UK and tell somebody they are working for free. If you're doing an internship, you have money. If you're working for free, it's called slave labor, right?
Thank you, sir.
And let's be honest. If we keep on saying, and yes, I definitely understand where you're coming from. There's a place. When you're younger, you have the privilege to be able to make certain choices not based on money because you don't have as much responsibility.
And names,
However, with the situation in the country, and let's just be honest, when they took lives, we were just saying there's hunger in the land. One income is not enough. Two people's income is not enough. A lot of kids, I'm assuming that's what you meant when you said there's a role reversal in it. A lot of kids are having to provide. If we start saying that young people should be working, should be doing internships for free to get experience, what you're then saying by extent is that you're limiting those experiences to the privileged few. Your kids, I don't know how many of you have kids. Some of your kids here can afford to do that because you can pay their transportation. What about the people who their parents can't afford to give them 3 square meals? Not talk of transportation.
I think at this
One
point,
sentence.
okay. Before we take final
name, see, you are robbing us, Gen Z. You this Agbalagbas. In the name of come and gain experience, really, I've seen people. We have mastered the art of using people.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
In the name of come and gain experience, come and volunteer. Come and that. We have mastered the art of using people.
I'm relegating them to the background.
Do you understand what I agree with?
I agree on that.
At the end of the day, you know what? We raise children that are really experienced. If check around, I have a lot of people in diaspora. You know, we raise children that are very experienced, they have skill, but they don't even understand the negotiation power in the skill that they have because we don't know how to monetize. In my house, what I practice is with my niece. When I send them work, when I give them assignments and tasks to do, I give them money, but I save it for them. I said, this money is not for candies, it's for this. You save it so that they can understand how to negotiate. What do you say of somebody earning 48,000 naira in Nigeria today? 48,000 naira. He has a family. He needs to transport every day to work. He needs to feed his children. What are we saying? And we are saying, we are working for the experience.
The point I was trying to make is this: I don't want our Gen Zs and the young people to be too concerned and too focused on money. I know that there is a need to appreciate a person that works hard, but don't make that money.
Especially at some certain stage.
Don't make it. Yes, don't put that money because you see.
Let me help you because of our time. I think don't put that in front. Know what you want at different stages of your life. Because at some point there's something you want to learn. And at that time, possibly you're just, be ready to overlook some certain things just to get that. After that, you start your negotiation. You can then begin to, especially if you feel that that's the place where you can get that. Finally, let's hear from Angel. Let her land. And I'm not coming back here to these hot fire brand people. Okay.
No problem. Just the reason I got a bit iffy about that conversation was because when we talk about our experiences, especially as Gen Zs and millennials, it's different because we came into an era where there's the digital media, right? So when you talk about skill acquisition, I can literally go and learn a crash course somewhere. So when I keep on saying that there's in fact, probably, okay, if I say oversaturation, I'm talking too much, but there's like a vast and wide range of knowledge that we've been able to grasp, that we are willing to grasp. So when you say I'm interning at a company, yes, I'm interning at a company. I'm gaining a lot more experience in a different sense, but I still have my hands as resources. So it's not like I'm coming here to just learn, because if you leave me to it, I will go and learn on YouTube. My mom learned how to bake on YouTube. So I'm just saying that it's very easy to undermine the jobs. It's very easy to undermine the skills of Gen Zs, and I feel like that's the reason why we're always having beef with the millennials, because it's like you always just think that we've had it all easy when it's really just that our experiences differ.
As a Gen Z, what is be your to this problem that is on the table, to the government, to in the families setting and in the society?
Okay, so for the family, I'll start with that because that's the agent of socialization. I think intentionality is very, very important because many people don't understand how a lot of young people, even with the older ones, pretty much every one of us here, we're walking around with some undressed trauma. And you don't understand how that is infiltrating other spaces and making us versions that we really do not want to be of ourselves. So I think that also most parents forget to understand that children are also human beings too. So they have feelings, they have emotions, and sometimes they're not able to regulate these emotions. So you have to be intentional in that space as well. And then thinking about the workspace, a lot of Gen Zs are deciding now to not work in corporate environments because they feel like their skills are not being catered for. It's why they would rather work a remote job. You'd rather see other people working in clubs because they're like, I can work in this club today as a manager and I'm going back home with a 500K tip, and they genuinely don't care.
And to the
government, to be honest, we just need a lot of communication strategies. We also need a lot of policy reforms because it's always the youth, but then the youth are like, we are not seeing ourselves anywhere. So it's like, while you implement these laws should actually be executed.
They are the cause of the problem. Is that what you are saying?
No, of
We are
course.
going to open another line of conversation right now.
No, of course I'm going to hold a lot of youth accountable, especially when I talked about greed earlier. I'm like, you're from a well-to-do home. Your parents have been able to cater for you, but you are on social media, which is also another perpetrator. And you feel like you have to do more than the next person when you don't even know where that person is from. So I'm just saying that in terms of holding everyone else accountable, we too should be able to hold ourselves accountable.
To talk to Tinubu right now concerning the problem of drugs abuse in Nigeria and the entire quick fix thing and all that, what would you say?
I would tell him that to mostly start from his internal team. I think that's what I'll say, because again, we're a reflection of the government as well. So it's like, what are you doing? What change are you? Because imagine they were literally complaining about EFCC and Bobrisky, right? Literally, very dark man had to come and, you know what, Yahoo boys, I don't think you're doing a bad thing. Keep doing what you're doing. Do you understand? So it's like, what are you doing? How are you mirroring society? So yeah.
Thank you, Angel. Finally, Prof. And that will be like in 1 minute, please.
Yes, the question you asked her, I think I will take it from there. What will I tell Tinubu? You see, in the past, around 82 or 83, when Ajakuta was working perfectly, you discover that the rate of crime in Kogi State reduced drastically. Why? Because more than 70% of the youth were employed. They will go to work, and they come back around 6. So they don't have time to go and do any other thing. So if I were to talk to the government, I think the government can employ more hands. I'll just explain to my colleagues here what happened. It may not take 1 week, 1 minute. I went home just about 3 months ago, and I was talking to some of the boys who are politicians, and one of them told me that the allocation to my local government is about 475 million. And then I asked them, how many wards do we have? They said we have 11 wards. I mentally divided 475 million to 11. And I came up with about 44 million for each ward. My ward, my own ward, is not up to 1/4 of the university land. Yes. And I said, okay, if 44 million is coming to my ward, what can I do with it with such an amount? First of all, what do they want? They need water, they need light, they need road, healthcare, and then maybe schools. Okay, I said, okay, let me start with water. Today, if you want to build, if you want to dig a borehole, 10 boreholes, the maximum you can spend is 5 million naira, because borehole now, the highest I think is 500,000.
Okay, so let's have the last thought on this.
So what we are saying is that what goes to the local government, if well utilized, in fact, local government, they don't need half of what is going to them. if it is well utilized. And they were able to employ
More people.
more people. You can imagine for decades, we've been sending money to local governments. And they keep on saying it's not enough. What have you done that it is not enough? That's the question.
All right.
So if what goes to the local government is well utilized, we'll be able to employ the youths. You can employ up to, from my mental calculation that day, I know that my local government can employ up to 1,000 youths within a year, and they'll still be able to pay.
Thank you so
Thank you
much for
Vital conversations have taken place and youths have lent their voices to the issues on ground. So please make this video go round so that even the government can hear it. I would like to say thank you to the entire production team of this show. I would also like to say thank you to our sponsors and the entire management of Radio Nigeria. My name is Folashade Akinola.
And my name is Ehi Ohiani. See you next time.